Thom Hartmann here with you. Well, over the Memorial Day weekend, Louise and I burned through a bunch of frequent flyer miles and went out to Portland to visit our three kids, um, and Louise's mother and her brother and her sister-in-law, and it was really nice seeing them all. It's very very nice time. And apparently, a few hours after we arrived around noon on Wednesday, local time, and around 5 that afternoon, this kid, he was 18 years old. Devin Arthurs is his name. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the Florida guy. I got the wrong guy here. Let me get my. Here we go. And Oregon, Joseph Christian is his name. 35 of North Portland, Oregon. He's not the kid. Sorry. We'll get to the guy, the 18-year-old, in a minute. And he was on the MAX. The MAX is the Portland train, the kind of trolley car, above ground, high-speed rail, downtown, all that kind of stuff. And there were two women. One of them was wearing a hijab, and he started screaming at them, telling them to go back to wherever they came from or whatever. They're both Americans. And Ricky John Best and Taliesin Mirden Mackay Meshe and Micah David Cole Fletcher, 53, 23, and 21, stood up and confronted this 35-year-old and said, wait a minute, that's no way to talk to women, and that's no way to talk, period. And he pulled out a knife, and he stabbed all three of them. He killed two of them. The Council on American Islamic Relations said, Zir Khan of the Council on American Islamic Relations said, Mr. Christian has a history of making extremist statements. And it seems like he's very enthralled, quote, from reviewing the suspect's Facebook page, it seems like he was very enthralled with the alt-right and Nazi movements. Right. The Southern Poverty Law Center looked at it and said, yeah, got it. Christian has promoted the notion of a whites-only area in the Pacific Northwest. So, this kind of thing seems to be happening more and more from Dylann Roof forward. White supremacy is raising its ugly head in ways that are just insanely visible. Was it Alabama last week that voted to make it illegal to take down Confederate monuments? I'm pretty sure it was Alabama. I mix up Alabama, Mississippi, and Arkansas a lot. But I'm pretty sure it was Alabama. At the same time that in Mississippi, we played this last Thursday, City Mayor Mitch Landrieu was Louisiana. Oh, I said Mississippi? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Troy. Yeah, New Orleans, Louisiana. Mayor Mitch Landrieu was taking down the statue of Robert E. Lee that dominates the city, and pointing out, as so eloquently, where are the statues to the dead slaves? Where are the statues to that commemorate the police state that was here for hundreds of years? But anyhow, this guy in Portland just went off on these women. Meanwhile, down in Florida, there's this 18-year-old I started out telling you about. His name is Devin Arthurs, and he started out as a Nazi, a hard-right Nazi, and then he converted to Islam and became a hard-right Muslim. And it appears that, at least from Devin Arthur's point of view, there's not that much difference between the two. It's just, you switch between Jesus and Muhammad. I mean, but they're all part of the three monotheistic great religions that originated out of Judaism, which is not entirely to blame Judaism, certainly. Monotheism, we can have a conversation about. But in any case, Lois Beckett and Jason Burke talking about this when 18-year-old Devin Arthurs burst into a Florida smoke shop with a pistol and took customers and employee hostage. He told them he was upset about America bombing Muslim countries. He also said he had already killed several people. So he sent the police to his apartment where where two of his friends were shot dead multiple times in the head and upper body. A third friend, Brandon Russell, was standing outside the apartment in army camouflage, weeping, according to court documents. All four of these guys had been neo-Nazis, but at some stage, the one guy, the killer, Arthurs, converted to Islam and killed his friends for disrespecting his new religion. And this is a remarkable article about this by Lois Beckett and Jason Burke in The Guardian over the weekend. Terrorists motivated by far-right extremism and by Islamist extremism share similar tactics, a similar brutality, and a similar desire to remake the global democratic order. We usually think of them as opposite ends of the spectrum, but no, they're really, the Wahhabist Islamists, the form of Islam that is exported by Saudi Arabia, Donald Trump's best friends. That is extremely hard right. And neo-Nazism is extremely hard right. There are no real national movements of the left that I know of anywhere. Maybe you do. I don't, Closest I can get is democratic socialism and Bernie Sanders, and all he's doing is saying the things that Franklin Roosevelt said, who used to be president of the United States. And then it raises the question, Arthur's switch in allegiance raises a key question for analysts looking at the processes of radicalization. To what extent the factors that attract people to extremism are specific to a particular ideology at all? The FBI and MI5, the British version of the FBI, say, quote, little distinguishes the pathway to violence taken by extremists following different ideologies. One UK official said, quote, the mechanics of radicalization were broadly similar in all cases. So whether you want to be a Nazi or whether you want to be a ISIL jihadi, you're basically operating out of the same place. A place where, for example, Qasim Rashid, who is a Muslim on Twitter and a lawyer, some idiot said, well, where's the Christian version of ISIS and every other religion then, if it ain't just Islam? And he replied, and you can read this over on his Twitter feed. I'm reading it from a website called somecards.com, someecards, .com. someecards.com. His reply was 400 years of transatlantic slave trade that maimed, raped, killed, kidnapped, and enslaved 20 million African heathens to bring them to Christ. Again, the question was, where's the Christian version of ISIS? Genocide of Native Americans under the name of Christ as manifest destiny. By the way, one of the biggest promoters of this was Andrew Jackson, the big hero of our current president. Genocide of Australian Aborigines that killed 90% of their population in less than a century, again by Christian Europeans. The Salem witch trials, the Spanish Christian Inquisition, the Christian Crusades, the Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda that has maimed, raped, and killed up to 100,000 people, according to the United Nations, during the past 15 years, which is far more destructive than ISIS. And they've done so to establish biblical law as a self-described Christian organization. In Central African Republic, Christian militias have destroyed every single mosque, and the UN reports that Muslims are facing ethnic cleansing, with reports that Christians are cannibalizing Muslims, literally. In America, white supremacists who are self-described Christian are the single largest terror threat to American security. That's according to the FBI and 392 police agencies in a study published last year. George Bush, a devout Christian, said God told him to invade Iraq, whereby some estimates 1 million civilians were killed due to this unjust war. KKK still exists. It calls itself a Christian organization. The Nazis still exist. They proclaim Christianity. The Aryan Nation still exists. They proclaim Christianity. He says, so before you question any Muslim about ISIS, which, by the way, is the result of that Iraq bombing and not the result of your Quran, please check yourself. Pretty sure it was Jesus who said something about motes and beams and judge not lest you be judged. Brilliant stuff. Meanwhile, now we've got this is hysterical. A Republican leader in Oregon, I told you I was in Oregon over the weekend, James Buchal, I think it's pronounced, B-U-C-H-A-L. He's the chair of the Multnomah County Republican Party. Multnomah County is basically Portland. He told The Guardian the GOP figures may need a security force protecting them when out in public. When asked if he meant private groups, Buchal told the newspaper, yeah, and there are these people arising like the Oath Keepers and the Three Percenters. These are both groups that are identified as hate groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center, right? Sort of like the SA. In 1921, Hitler set up this group. It was all volunteers. They all wore brown shirts, thus they were called the brown shirts. Sturmabteilung was the name in German, stormtroopers. And they started out to protect Hitler and Nazi from their opponents, and then they began disrupting other people's groups. And, finally they went a little too far with Mr. Rahm suggesting that they merge with the German military and Hitler becoming convinced that Rahm was trying to take over, et cetera, et cetera. And no, that doesn't work. And so, but, is this the direction that Trump wants to move us? Is this the direction that, not even wants, is this what happens when you have far-right authoritarian leadership? From Paul Ryan to Donald Trump to Mike Pence, with periods for Pence and keep women restricted, except mother, of course. And I'm talking about the name he gave to his wife. It's like, is this us now? And we're in bed with the Saudis, the leading exporters of hard-right Wahhabism, hard-right Islam in the world, and we're promoting hard-right Christianity? This is bizarre stuff. It's just bizarre stuff. My concern right now is the rise of the hard right in the United States, and getting O'Reilly off Fox News is not going to solve the problem. And this is a problem that festers on right-wing radio stations all across the country, literally thousands of them. It's a problem that festers in right-wing publications here in Washington, D.C. You can't get in a subway without somebody trying to give you one of the 2 free Washington, D.C. right-wing newspapers that are funded by right-wing foundations and right-wing billionaires. The right-wing message is the hard-right message. I'm not talking about, any kind of Barry Goldwater philosophy stuff. I'm talking about raw, naked racism and hatred and trying to indoctrinate average working people into thinking that they have to think and vote as if they were billionaires. The tax cuts are the most important thing. The balancing the budget is somehow critical to America. By the way, here's a hint. It's not. Government debt is nothing more than private savings. The reason why people like Pete Peterson, who made his billions on Wall Street, and all these other Wall Street billionaires are pushing reducing the federal debt is because if the federal government can't sell treasury bills, then if your uncle dies and leaves you $500,000, where are you going to put it? Right now, you can buy treasuries with it, and for the rest of your life, they are totally safe. But if your rich uncle dies and leaves you $500,000 and there's no federal debt, that means there's no treasuries to buy. That means you have to go to Wall Street. And they get to take your money. Skim all they want off the top. I mean, that's really what's going on. I mean, that's not even a conservative principle. It's like conservative, the so-called modern-day conservatives are not conservatives. They are shills for industry and the billionaires that those industries create. Whether they're shilling against net neutrality on behalf of big ISPs like Comcast, or whether they're shilling for the fossil fuel industry on behalf of companies like ExxonMobil or Koch Industries. And by the way, have you noticed that these industries are all starting to advertise on TV like crazy? A, clean up their reputation. B, make it harder for the TV, investigative journalists to do anything about them that might reflect poorly on them at the same time that they're advertising. Oh, we can't have that. because money controls everything on commercial television. It makes all the decisions. Meanwhile, we've got this, Jared Kushner stuff. Is he trying to create a back channel to Russia? Was that some sort of evil treasonous thing? Or was he saying, we're going to change the policies from the Obama policies and try to be more inclusive with Russia, and we don't trust the Obama administration to manage that process? I have no idea. But these are the two competing narratives from basically the left and the right. But this stuff we need to figure this stuff out. And we need to figure it out fast, and we need to figure it out in a very public way so that the American public can be, reassured or horrified, as the case may be, and take appropriate action. We'll be back with your calls after this. It's 28.